At 46, Kevin Hart, the comedian who made us laugh for years, is now facing an unimaginable tragedy that will break your heart. Behind the laughter and success, he's been silently struggling with personal pain that no one saw coming. From his rise to stardom to his darkest days, the truth about what Kevin Hart is enduring will shock you. This isn't just about fame, it's about loss, resilience, and the fight to survive when the world seems to fall apart. Don't miss this deeply emotional revelation. Kevin Hart's story didn't start in a mansion or with fame. It started in a small, run-down apartment in North Philadelphia, where Kevin grew up with his older brother Robert and their mother, Nancy Hart. Life wasn't easy for the Hart family. Kevin's dad, Henry Witherspoon, was caught in the grip of addiction and wasn't around much. Kevin would remember his dad as a man who came and went, always promising things would get better, but never sticking around long enough to make that promise real. It was Nancy who held everything together. She worked long hours as an administrative clerk at the University of Pennsylvania, doing everything she could to make sure her boys had what they needed, even though there was never enough money to go around. Their home was far from perfect. It was cold in the winter, hot in the summer, and the fridge was often empty. Kevin would wake up some mornings to find his mom sitting at the kitchen table, exhausted, with a pile of unpaid bills in front of her. But she never let it show. She'd wake up every day, put on her uniform, and keep going, determined to make life work for her family. She wasn't just a mother, she was a warrior. And although her love was strict, she was always there for Kevin and his brother, making sure they stayed on the right path. For Kevin, life was a constant struggle against the odds. He was small for his age, and at school, he was often the target of bullying. The other kids would pick on him for his size, the way he dressed, and the fact that his dad was hardly ever around. But instead of letting it crush him, Kevin found a way to fight back. He used humor to deflect the pain. If he could make people laugh, maybe they'd stop laughing at him. He turned every insult into material. Every moment of humiliation became part of his comedy routine. Kevin learned to laugh through the pain, and in doing so, he learned to survive. His mom, Nancy, taught him the importance of discipline and focus. She wasn't one for coddling, but she believed in his potential long before anyone else did. She made sure Kevin understood that life wasn't about feeling sorry for yourself. It was about pushing through and making something of yourself. Despite everything, Kevin learned that laughter could be his weapon, his way out. But it wasn't just about jokes. It was about finding a way to rise above the struggles. By the time he was in his late teens, Kevin was still living in the same tough environment, but he had bigger dreams. He enrolled in the Community College of Philadelphia, but life had other plans. He dropped out, got a job selling shoes, and quickly realized that learning to read people, understanding timing, and knowing how to connect with others were skills that would one day serve him on stage. Though he wasn't yet on the road to fame, Kevin's journey had begun. He may not have had much, but he had heart. And from that heart, he began building the foundation for what would become a career defined by laughter, hard work, and an unbreakable will to succeed. Kevin Hart's early career wasn't a smooth ride. Far from it. It was a struggle against a system that didn't see him as a star, but as just another guy trying to make it in a world full of talented comedians. Kevin was born in North Philadelphia, where he learned early on that dreams don't grow in comfort. But even as a child, he knew laughter was his escape, his shield, and his weapon. When he started dreaming of comedy, he didn't have a clear roadmap or any guarantees. He only had his humor, his raw talent, and a burning desire to make something out of nothing. His first steps into the world of comedy were far from glamorous. Kevin started performing in small local clubs in Philadelphia. The stages were often small, and the audiences were tough. It wasn't the kind of comedy scene that would welcome him with open arms. Instead, Kevin faced rejection, ridicule, and humiliation. His first performances were rough. The crowd wasn't always kind. Imagine standing on stage, your palms sweating, your heart racing, and then hearing laughter, not of the kind that lifts you up, but of the kind that cuts you down. That's what Kevin Hart faced. People would throw chicken wings at him and shout, "Get off!" It was the kind of moment that could break a person, but Kevin wasn't going to be broken. He stayed. He fought back with humor, pushing through the awkward moments, the mistakes, and the stares. Every time the crowd didn't laugh, he forced a louder laugh. He stayed longer. He was determined to make it, not because he was the best, but because he wasn't willing to give up. Kevin wasn't just performing for a crowd, he was performing for himself. Each joke that failed was a step closer to the man he was going to become. Each insult, each embarrassing moment was an experience that would later turn into material. Every single setback pushed him harder. Kevin learned quickly that it wasn't just about being funny. It was about surviving the silence, the rejection, and the failures that would come with chasing his dream. The early years were full of nights spent sleeping on couches, in his car, or anywhere he could find a place to rest. Rent was overdue. The fridge was empty. Kevin's ambition was clear, but the road was tough. He was determined to keep going, no matter how impossible it seemed. He used his job as a shoe salesman as training. He didn't realize it at the time, but every day spent talking to customers, learning their personalities, understanding their moods, and reading their reactions was preparing him for the stage. Comedy isn't just about telling jokes. It's about timing, connection, and understanding your audience. Kevin learned how to read people, how to use his words to connect with strangers, and most importantly, how to keep them interested. At this point, Kevin was doing what most people would consider small-time gigs. He wasn't getting rich, he wasn't getting famous, and the laughs didn't always come easy. But something was happening under the surface. He was building his voice, sharpening his skills, and growing as a performer. He wasn't just trying to survive, he was trying to transform his life, to create something greater than what he was given. He knew that he had to fight for recognition. Hollywood wasn't going to just hand him a career. He had to fight for every opportunity. Kevin's journey took him to New York, where he hoped to break into the bigger comedy scene. But even then, things didn't come easy. He'd perform for small crowds, sometimes only a few people in the audience, and most of them were other comedians waiting for their turn. The conditions were harsh. The comedy clubs were tough. The lights were dim, and the air was filled with uncertainty. It felt like one failure after another. Kevin bombed in front of crowds who were waiting for him to fail, and every misstep was met with cold silence or sarcastic comments. But Kevin didn't quit. There were nights when he wanted to, when the only sound he heard was the echo of his own disappointment. He thought about giving up. He even reached for his phone to call his mother, but stopped short. She wasn't there to tell him to keep going anymore. She'd passed away a few years earlier, and in that moment, Kevin felt the weight of her absence. But instead of quitting, he kept moving. He told himself, "One more night, one more stage." His mother's voice echoed in his head, reminding him that he couldn't give up. She had taught him to work hard, to never settle, to keep pushing forward no matter how hard life got. By the time Kevin made his first big breakthrough, he was already battle-tested. He had faced rejection and ridicule from every angle, but he had survived. In the early 2000s, he finally started getting the kind of gigs that gave him a real shot. He was cast in sitcoms, made guest appearances on television shows, and even started landing small roles in movies. But his real breakthrough came with his stand-up specials. Kevin took a huge risk in 2011 when he filmed Laugh at My Pain, pouring everything he had into the special. At that time, he was facing financial struggles. He had a huge tax bill, and his savings were almost gone. He put up $750,000 of his own money to film the special, betting everything on himself. People thought he was crazy, a comedian with little to no guarantees, putting everything on the line for one shot. But when the special aired, it was a massive success. The audience loved it. His raw, personal comedy connected with people in a way that hadn't been done before. The special grossed almost $10 million in theaters and became one of the most watched comedy specials of all time. That moment changed everything for Kevin. The gamble paid off, and it proved to the world that Kevin Hart wasn't just a guy telling jokes. He was a force to be reckoned with. As Kevin's popularity grew, so did his empire. He wasn't just a stand-up comedian anymore. He was a Hollywood star, a producer, a businessman. His movies, including the ride-along series Jumanji and Central Intelligence, became huge hits, grossing billions worldwide. Kevin's career wasn't just about comedy. It was about creating something bigger than himself. He was able to use his platform to launch other projects, start his own production company, and build a brand that extended far beyond the stage. But the fight didn't stop there. As Kevin rose to the top, he faced new challenges. The more successful he became, the more pressure there was to keep it all going. He had to work harder, juggle more projects, and keep his name at the top of the industry. Every success came with its own set of difficulties. But through it all, Kevin stayed grounded. He didn't forget where he came from. He never lost sight of the struggle that had brought him here. Even when fame and fortune were his, he knew that his journey wasn't just about the applause. It was about the perseverance that got him through the tough times. Kevin Hart's early career struggles are a testament to his resilience. They weren't just hurdles on his path. They were the foundation of everything that followed. He learned that the road to success wasn't going to be easy, and the fight for recognition wasn't a quick one. But through sheer determination, talent, and a refusal to quit, Kevin turned his dreams into a reality, showing the world that no matter how hard life gets, it's possible to rise up, make your mark, and build an empire from scratch. Kevin Hart's journey to fame was nothing short of extraordinary. He wasn't handed success on a silver platter. Instead, he had to fight for every opportunity, clawing his way up from the bottom. And when he finally reached the top, he was met with challenges that no one could have predicted. Success didn't come without its costs. In fact, it came with a hefty price. The more Kevin achieved, the more the spotlight shined on him. And with that came scrutiny, pressure, and scandal. But even through it all, he kept moving forward. By the mid-2010s, Kevin Hart had become a household name. His stand-up specials like Laugh at My Pain and Seriously Funny were major successes, and his movie career was taking off. His roles in Ride Along, Think Like a Man, and Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle catapulted him into the big leagues, and it seemed like nothing could stop him. He was everywhere, on TV, on the big screen, in the tabloids. He had conquered the comedy world and was now ruling Hollywood. He was the guy everyone wanted to work with. Kevin had built a comedy empire with sold-out tours, box office hits, and millions of fans around the world. But behind the laughs and the success, Kevin was starting to feel the weight of fame in ways he hadn't anticipated. The pressure of constant success began to take a toll on him. Fame had always been something Kevin chased, but now it seemed to be chasing him. There was no longer any quiet moment. Everywhere he went, cameras were on him. Every move, every word, every tweet was scrutinized. People who once admired him now saw him as a target. His personal life was suddenly everyone's business, and the privacy he once had was gone. He realized that fame didn't just come with adoration, it came with expectations, judgment, and a constant need to perform. Then came the first of many scandals. In 2017, just before Kevin was set to host the Oscars, a past controversy resurfaced. Old tweets from years earlier, filled with homophobic slurs and insensitive jokes, came back to haunt him. The world seemed to turn on him overnight. The jokes, which he had made when he was younger and still figuring himself out, were now seen as offensive and unacceptable. The backlash was swift and brutal. Kevin was forced to step down from hosting the Academy Awards, a role he had worked his whole life to achieve. At first, Kevin tried to brush it off, claiming that he had already apologized for the comments in the past and that he had grown since then. But the internet wasn't having it. The pressure continued to mount as public opinion swirled against him. There were calls for him to publicly apologize again, and Kevin found himself at the center of a media storm. It was a humbling experience for someone who had been riding high on the success of his career. He had always been the life of the party, the guy who could make everyone laugh, but now he was the punchline. For the first time in his career, Kevin couldn't joke his way out of a situation. The scandal was bigger than him. The fallout from the Oscars debacle was just the beginning of the difficulties Kevin would face. His career, which had been on an upward trajectory for so long, now faced serious obstacles. Brand deals were pulled, and people who had once been eager to work with him suddenly distanced themselves. The criticism was relentless, and for a while, it felt like the world was ready to tear him down. But Kevin didn't stay down for long. In typical Kevin Hart fashion, he pushed forward. He took the opportunity to reflect on the situation and learn from it. He admitted that he wasn't perfect, that he had made mistakes, and that he needed to grow. He began focusing less on the public's perception of him and more on his own journey of personal growth. Kevin's ability to bounce back from this scandal showed his resilience. He didn't let it define him. He apologized, but he didn't apologize for the sake of his career. He apologized because he understood the harm those words could cause, and he genuinely wanted to be better. He continued to build his empire, but now he did so with a renewed sense of purpose. His comeback wasn't about winning over critics or reclaiming lost brand deals. It was about being a better person both publicly and privately. In his stand-up, he started addressing the issues in a more honest and self-aware way, and his fans responded positively to that. But fame didn't just bring scandals, it also brought more challenges to his personal life. Kevin's marriage to his first wife, Torre Hart, had always been in the public eye. Their relationship was a part of Kevin's narrative, and as his fame grew, so did the attention on their marriage. They had met before the success, when they were both struggling to make it in the world of entertainment. But as Kevin's career skyrocketed, the cracks in their relationship began to show. The long hours, the constant travel, and the pressure of being in the public eye took a toll on their marriage. They eventually separated in 2010 and divorced in 2011. Kevin has spoken openly about the breakdown of his marriage, admitting that his ambition and the pressures of his career played a role in it. He said that he wasn't present enough, that he was so focused on success that he neglected the things that mattered most, his family. The divorce was a painful experience for him, and it left him questioning his own choices. He felt the sting of failure, not just in his career, but in his personal life as well. But Kevin, being who he is, didn't wallow in his mistakes. Instead, he worked on himself, learned from the experience, and moved forward. His next chapter came when he met Iniku Parish. Kevin has often said that Iniku came into his life at the right time, when he was ready to be the man she deserved. They got married in 2016, and shortly after, their first child together, Kenzo, was born. Kevin often describes Iniku as his rock, the person who helped him find balance in his life. But even then, the price of fame continued to loom over their relationship. In 2017, a scandal involving Kevin's infidelity threatened to tear everything apart. A video surfaced showing Kevin in a compromising situation with another woman. The public backlash was immediate. Fans, critics, and tabloids were quick to judge him. Kevin's infidelity was a blow to his personal life, and this time, there was no way to joke his way out of it. He had to face the reality of his actions, and the pain it caused not just to his wife, but to his family. The media circus that followed was brutal. Kevin could have crumbled under the pressure, but he chose a different path. He publicly admitted his mistake, took responsibility for it, and apologized to his wife, his children, and his fans. Iniku, too, showed incredible strength. She chose to forgive him, and together, they worked through the difficult times. They rebuilt their relationship with the same determination that had helped Kevin build his career. Despite all the scandals and the mistakes, Kevin Hart emerged stronger than ever. He learned that fame wasn't just about the good times and the laughs. It was about how you handled the bad times too. He discovered that real success wasn't just about making people laugh or filling stadiums. It was about integrity, humility, and doing the hard work behind the scenes. Kevin's story is one of growth, resilience, and redemption. He faced the consequences of his actions, rebuilt his life, and showed the world that it's possible to rise after falling. He proved that even the most successful can stumble, but it's how they get back up that defines them. Today, Kevin Hart stands as a symbol of strength, not just because of his fame or his fortune, but because of the way he handles his struggles. Fame may come with its price, but Kevin Hart has shown that with enough grit, honesty, and a willingness to learn, it's possible to turn even the darkest moments into something positive. Kevin Hart's life had always been a roller coaster of ups and downs, but nothing could have prepared him for the crash that would change everything. In 2019, just as his career was hitting its peak, disaster struck. On September 1st, Kevin was in a car accident that nearly took his life. He was in the passenger seat of his 1970 Plymouth Barracuda, a car that symbolized his success. But what was supposed to be a celebration quickly turned into a nightmare. The car crashed into an embankment, and Kevin's back was broken in multiple places. The world outside was spinning in chaos, but inside the car, everything was frozen in a moment of painful silence. Kevin remembers the feeling of helplessness as he realized the extent of his injuries. His spine was shattered, and the pain was unimaginable. For a man whose life had been defined by movement, energy, and performance, this moment was a cruel twist of fate. As he lay there in agony, wondering if he would ever walk again, the reality of his mortality hit him harder than any joke or scandal ever had. He had always been the man who could command a room with his humor and energy, but now he was reduced to a man who could barely move. The road to recovery was long and filled with pain. Kevin underwent emergency back surgery, and for days he lay in a hospital bed, trapped in a stillness he had never known before. The hustle and bustle of his life had come to a screeching halt. Every inch he gained in recovery was earned in excruciating agony. His physical therapy sessions were brutal, and even the smallest movement felt like climbing a mountain. But through it all, Kevin kept pushing forward. He had faced setbacks before, but this was different. This wasn't just about a career comeback or regaining his strength. It was about reclaiming his life. As the days passed, Kevin realized that his journey was about more than just physical healing. It was about rebuilding his entire mindset. He began to understand that success wasn't just about the applause and the fame. It was about endurance, humility, and gratitude. He was forced to slow down and appreciate the things he had once taken for granted. For the first time in years, he was able to reflect on his life, his choices, and the people who had been by his side. His wife, Eniku, was there through every painful moment, offering support when he needed it most. Their bond grew stronger as they both faced this new chapter together. As the pain slowly started to subside, Kevin's perspective on life changed. He no longer chased success the way he used to. The accident had humbled him in ways nothing else could. He realized that he had been living for the wrong reasons, always striving for more, never truly appreciating what he had in front of him. He now found peace in the stillness, understanding that true strength comes from accepting vulnerability and facing challenges head-on. Through hard work and perseverance, Kevin regained his physical strength, but the real redemption came from within. He learned that it was okay to be imperfect and to fall, as long as you kept getting back up. The accident became a turning point, not just in his career, but in his life. Kevin Hart wasn't just rebuilding his body, he was rebuilding his soul. His story became one of true redemption, a reminder that even after tragedy, it's possible to rise again, stronger and more determined than ever.